Thank you, sir. I'll turn to page 19 and 20 of the report to begin with, which is related to the Adelaide Venue Management Corporation and following on from some questions from last year in relation to the Coopers Stadium upgrade. Can I ask, how often has the Minister been meeting with the AVMC and or received briefings to ensure that this upgrade is monitored closely?
Very much for the question. I meet regularly with AVMC, particularly the Chair and the Chief Executive, and you're obviously not following my media very closely because I was out there just recently to launch, of course, that we're nearly at the end of our great big build. And so there was particularly the new pitch that we announced and the signage upgrades, which was there for the FIFA Women's World Cup. And we had to hold that work for a little while. We've now spent $43.2 million of that $45 million funding.
So I thank the Minister for her answer, and I got the sense from it that there's a sense of mission accomplished from that, which, if that's the case, then it's good that we are there. The Auditor General in this document says that the Venue Management Corporation expects to complete the project in 2025 with, as that stage, $1.8 million unexpended. Is there further work to do, as the Auditor General suggests, or is the Auditor General out of date with this statement?
Just as I was advised, which led to my being down there for my media, the final works were completed in October 2024, which of course was not part of the financial year that we're discussing today. It was in preparation for the opening home game of the 24-25 A-League season. And if I'm right, it was voted the best place to play by the players. Martin's going to nod at me. Excellent. So a great credit to us to have that as well. Yes, that was in May of 2023. It was voted by the Professional Footballers Australia as the best stadium in terms of pitch quality and atmosphere for the men's A-League 22-23 season.
I thank the Minister, but can I just clarify then? She said that $43.2 million had been expended. The Auditor General in this document says that $43.2 million had been expended as at the 30th of June, and that there was $1.8 million still to be expended. So is that money still to be expended this financial year, bringing the total project cost to $45 million? Or is it a cost saving to taxpayer of $1.8 million? Or is it a different figure still to be spent in this financial year?
So that money has been spent. Alas, there was no savings. The current final invoice has been collated. There's no budgetary overrun expected.
Thank the Minister. Last year, she reported that at this time last year, there were $3 million remaining for outstanding works on stadium signage to be completed in November, and that pitch replacement that I think the Minister referred to in her earlier answer due to be completed by last month. Is that the timetable that has gone through, and were there any other expenditures? I guess my main question is, did it cap out at that $45 million, or were there any further cost outlays on over and above that?
It was yes, completed.
Yes, it was 45 and no more. Thank you. I'll go to SATC then. Thank you. Thank you. So we're looking at page 368 and probably 367 of the annual report as well. I'll just quote from the middle of the page. 23-24 saw the continuation of major sponsored events such as Live Golf, the AFL Gather Round. I think last year the Minister identified also Harvest Rock and Tour Down Under was supported from the Major Events Fund. Can the Minister provide a list of all the events the SATC received funding from the Major Events Fund to run during the financial year in question?
You've already labelled some of those events, but it was quite a substantial year in 23-24. We know we've got this great positive momentum going forward. I particularly feel it when I'm interstate. People say, well, what are you doing over there? It's all very exciting. Things particularly like Illuminate Adelaide had some additional support, the PGA WebEx Golf 23-25, Harvest Rock Music Festival, the UCI Track Nations Cup, Adelaide Festival, WOMAD Adelaide, the AFL Gather Round, the Adelaide Equestrian Festival, Live Golf, the National Wheelchair Rugby Championships, the Combank Matildas versus China in May 24, the Suncorp Super Netball Final, the Socceroos Match 2024, Beach Volley Domestic Events, World Beach Volley Champs 24-26, and the British and Irish Lions Games in 25.
Thank you, the Minister. Can I just confirm, are those all events that were supported by the Major Events Fund, or was that list the major events that the SATC is supporting separate to the Major Events Fund?
It's not. As you know, we're very busy at the SATC. There are further 18 events that receive sponsorship payments from the SAT's general appropriation. The 2023 State of Origin, the 2023 Frida Kahlo exhibition that was held at the Art Gallery, the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup held in Adelaide, and of course those 5 events meant we were beamed around the world, and that's why we spent that money on upgrading Cooper's Stadium. Illuminate South Australia, the Bend, the 2023 Australian Masters Games, the National Drag Racing Championships, Adelaide International, that's the tennis, Riverbend National Drag Racing Championships, 2024 National Athletics Championships, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia, the Bend Classic, Bike Festival, Swimming Short Course Champs, TDU Gravel Event, the TDU Paracycling World Cup, the TDU Women's Crit, and the World Lasso Championships, which, must I say, a former Minister of Tourism from the other side signed off on that. An incredibly great economic impact because people were here for about 6 weeks into the western suburbs.
At the risk of provoking further response, you're welcome for a few of those events that the Minister's just listed. Minister, on page 367, there is a highlight of the grants transferred. I think there's an increase of $23 million from the previous year. Can the Minister identify if that increase is all as a result of the Major Events Fund, or is there a different source of increased funding?
Was an increase of 23.9 million, and that's from the Major Events Fund associated with sporting events, to grow and develop our existing owned and managed events and secure major national international events. Of course, we had this funding going back and forth and decreased to transfer on TTF contingency for the River Revival program, which was rising up for our rivers. So we see money going back and forth between different agencies and the SATC. What I would say, though, is there's quite a lot of fluctuations in income and expenditure depending on when we're paying forward, and often we're paying out money quite in advance of an event, 2-3 years, even up to 5 years at a time. So those money that comes across when we're supporting those events, that's that transfer of funds that comes to SAT from the Major Events Fund. And we know that they're approved on a year-by-year basis, and that's why we've got this fluctuation, but they might be approved many years in advance.
Can the Minister then clarify, did the SATC expend any funds for major events over and above what it received from the Major Events Fund?
Identified, I think I listed 18 events before that had sponsorship directly from SATC.
So, going back to the Minister's two previous answers to related questions, the second answer she's just referred to, the 18 events were funded outside of the Major Events Fund, and if I'm correct then, the list that she started with, which included, as previous years, Live Golf at Gather Round and Harvest Rock, but it was joined by Matildas, the Illuminate, PGA, UCI, Beach Volley, Wheelchair Rugby. Those ones were all funded from the Major Events Fund, is that correct?
That is correct.
Appreciated. Can the Minister identify the role played by the SA Tourism Commission in relation to the Adelaide Festival fund grant that she's just identified?
Recollection, there was some specific parts of the Adelaide Festival. If I recall accurately, it was the Little Amal that was here, but there were some other parts to that. I'll endeavour to get you an answer before our time is finished.
Can the Minister confirm if the SA Tourism Commission sponsored the request for funding for Little Amal?
I'll have to come back to you on that. Obviously, decisions that we've talked about before are made through MEAC, the Major Events Fund, of which we do briefs up to the Major Events Fund. My understanding that was the decision made, but I'll come back to you about the detail. Yeah, sure. We can confirm Little Amal was supported through that process.
I thank the Minister, and maybe just to clarify for my benefit, was the Little Amal grant a suggestion of the SATC, or was it one that came from elsewhere, perhaps the Adelaide Festival, for example, and on which the SATC was asked to offer support or otherwise as a consulted body?
Take on notice, because obviously when people have a project that needs additional funding, we often have conversations with them over a long period of time, as does Major Events. So it's possible over a long period of time, Adelaide Festival been talking to us, they talk to Arts about what their intentions are, so I'll have to take that on notice.
Thank the Minister, and I invite the Minister whether she would care to share with the people of South Australia what was the grant, what was the quantum of the grant, how much did it provide?
Well, that grant would be commercial in confidence, so it would be inappropriate for me to share that figure.
Can the Minister, on the same budget line, sir, or the same audit line, can the Minister outline the new funding I think she identified for Illuminate Adelaide? My recollection is that there was previously a specific budget stream for Illuminate Adelaide from new money to budget provided to the SATC for that purpose. But the Minister, I think, just included it in the list for the Major Events Fund. So was this over and above that previously provided, or is it instead of the funding that was previously through the SATC budget?
Adelaide, we were pleased to continue that funding, and it continues into the future of several years. We know it's a celebration of innovation, art, light, music and technology. Most importantly, it's been this opportunity to increase a winter event, building on the work of the Cabaret Festival, for example, at a time where it's much quieter in the city and bringing people in. So that has continued. The last one in the 23 was held between the 28th and 30th of July, which was in that last financial year, and that was the third iteration of that event. A key part of that is the City Lights program. And for me, that's incredibly important because it draws people in. I know from my own electorate of Ramsay, it's quite popular. People come in on the train. You see lots of families there that don't usually come to the city and enjoy that free event. And that's part of the sponsorship that we have with Illuminate. Of course, Resonate in the Botanic Gardens was very popular as well, and Mirror Mirror in Victoria Square. In fact, I was saying to someone the other day that had Illuminate not been using the Botanic Gardens as it has, and we had the Fire Festival this year, Chihuly, which has been taken up with great support, we mightn't have seen it in that light before, the use of Botanic Gardens, particularly at night. So Illuminate has continued to do that. We saw 1.3 million attendances, 54.3 million in economic activity for the state. There was something particularly special, though, in that previous year in 23. As you know, we were looking at rising up for the river and the ways to support, and we encouraged Illuminate to go up to Mannum with the support of the Mid-Murray Council, and they had a regional event to support the river recovery. That went from, River Lights went from the 4th to the 13th of August, including those displays on the main street and the riverfront, and it saw 20,000 attendees going up to Mannum at a time when it really needed our support. It was across 10 nights. I do remember talking to the Mayor of Mid-Murray, and she said, do you know what this was? It was a trigger for everyone to open up again, because there was some nervousness, there was some concern after such a devastating time, and to have the River Lights up there really prompted that opening. So Illuminate works really well for us. We continue to support it, and we'll do into the future.
Can I ask the Minister about the Harvest Rock Festival, which she identified in that list before? My understanding is that the Harvest Rock Festival that was due to take place in 2024 has been postponed. Postponed or cancelled? Perhaps the Minister can just clarify that for me. Are there any risks or liabilities for taxpayers as a result of that?
Start with your second question first. No, there are no risks or liabilities. Look, we were incredibly disappointed that Harvest Rock wasn't able to go ahead. It has been postponed. What's really important for me is that the delivery of the first and second Harvest Rock was incredibly successful. And it was incredibly successful because of the key headliners and the support acts that we had, but also the opportunity for South Australian food and wine at its very best to be there. We got incredibly great responses. If I remember accurately, the nights of people staying were 4.5 nights. So people came to Harvest Rock, that was the draw card, and then they stayed on going out to the regions often for most of them. At this point, it developed a great response, combining this live music with the wine and food, but of course in the heart of Adelaide, so drawing people in, really high levels of interstate attendance. But we had to make sure, particularly in a challenging time of increasing interest rates and inflation, that we had a really good draw card, and at this point that was unable to happen. And we've actually seen quite a few of those festivals before our announcement, before Secret Sound's announcement, after that have not gone ahead due to the costs and the inability to get a person or a band at the right level. So we'll continue to have that conversation. We think it worked well. It was, once again, something that had been worked on for some time, got interrupted, didn't happen because of COVID, came back in, really well received and a real positive. But we'll continue to make sure that postponed will be conversations about that opportunity.
Stepping back 12 months to the 2023 Harvest Rock Festival, can the Minister identify whether SATC or the government sponsored any promotions for influencers to attend that Harvest Rock Festival?
So that is a Secret Sounds event. So they are the event runners. We, of course, are a sponsor for it. I think you might be talking about brand advocates. As you may know, there has been some review and recalibration about how we use the appropriate people at the right time. And that is my understanding that wasn't a situation for Harvest Rock.
Thank the Minister, and I will be sure to include the term brand advocates next to FMILs and influencers in any future FOI requests. So the Minister's answer, as I understand, is there were no SCTC arrangements for brand advocates to be supported to attend Harvest Rock. Can the Minister advise what arrangements were in place for SATC or the government as a sponsor of Harvest Rock to receive free tickets, and how were they distributed?
Sponsor, like all events, then we are provided with tickets to go along to those events that we sponsor. It'll be an understanding and a commercial contract for each of those groups that we are doing, unless it is an event, of course, that is our own, such as the National Pharmacy's Christmas pageant or the Santos Tour Down Under. Of course, these are our own events, and of course, Tasting Australia, which has been supported by RAA. It's part of the partnership with the Human Resources. Oh, sorry. Okay. So as always, these tickets, particularly with Harvest Rock, it's for stakeholders and business partnerships, and that is for most of the events that are held.
I thank the Minister. This time last year in these questions I asked about tickets provided from a Twitter user, or I should say x.com user, who approached the Premier for some free tickets, which the Premier indicated at the time that he'd be able to help with. Private message me your email address and I'll get you some tickets. The Premier is still on x.com saying, can the Minister advise, I couldn't ask these questions last year because I was out of the wrong financial year, but in relation now to resolve this long-awaited question, under what state government policy were those tickets provided?
I think I answered that, stakeholders and business partners.
So how broad is the range of stakeholders and business partners that allows a casual user of x.com to get the Premier's ear? And is the Minister able to identify the number of tickets provided under such circumstances?
I think that my previous answer covered your concerns. As I said, tickets are offered, particularly with Harvest Rock, for stakeholders and business partners, and that was a decision that was made. Obviously, with every group that we work with, that is the decision.
Is the Minister able to find the number of tickets that state government was provided by Secret Sounds for the Harvest Rock Festival 2023?
I'll take that on notice.
Thank the Minister. I'll go to a different topic on the same page, which is in relation to the marketing and advertising. There's a $10.6 million decrease identified in advertising and promotion, driven by marketing funding from prior year interstate and overseas consumer advertising campaigns ceasing. So we understand the previous year there was some events that weren't continuing. Can the Minister provide details on which advertising campaigns ceased or had reduced effort? And is the SATC replacing these advertising campaigns with another strategy, or have they just come to their natural conclusion and are no longer needed?
Well, of course, marketing is always needed for our beautiful state. It's a very competitive industry. When we look at the different marketing activities that you are talking about, it includes destination marketing, PR, digital trade, global markets, and events marketing team. So we're talking about things like production, media, market research, familiarisations, international representation, public relations, digital and web development, and trade marketing. There was a decrease because when we came to government, people may well remember, we had an increase of $15 million for marketing. 40 million all over, but 15 million for that first year back, because we needed to build back after COVID. So there was a significant increase in 22-23 to make sure that we were competing with other states, other countries, and as you may well recall, that it was just when that international traffic was starting to come back. So that's where we saw quite a bit of change between those 2 years. Now, of course, we also had some extra expenditure for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. There was also the Choose Tourism Grant funding, which was a funding received by the Commonwealth Government, really targeted at people who might be interested in taking up tourism as a career. One of the key things that it also talks about is about how we got people back internationally. And I was really proud in that year of the industry assistance that we supported, particularly about trade opportunities. So we subsidised groups of people going to the US and Europe. You may recall our tourism operators who had internationally facing businesses were absolutely devastated by the experience of COVID. Overnight, suddenly there was nothing coming. Some of them didn't survive, which was very sad, and we lost incredibly great operators who had built their business over time. But we do have a very strong cohort who we supported in that year to go for the US and the European. In fact, I held a afternoon tea here for those trade groups that went. And what we really saw is some fantastic collaboration come out of those trade events. People who weren't sure whether they should go, whether they should invest the money, but with that subsidy of the South Australian government, knew that we were behind them and knew that we were going to support them to build back our international tourism experience. And of course, just the other week, I announced Emirates coming back and was there when the plane landed. And of course, China Southern is coming in December. These are all incredibly important parts of the puzzle for us building back to where we were. We've already reached higher economic expenditure than we did, but we're not quite back at the same numbers. We're nearly there. But these are the things that marketing does. Now, of course, we also launched our Travel Our Way campaign on the 30th of September 2023, followed by extension with Winter Our Way as well. A key part, though, in that 22-23 year, so the 23-24 year, was this river recovery support and voucher program. And I have to say that everyone in this house supported what we'd done before when we'd experienced fires, with the Book Them Out, both in Kangaroo Island and of course in the Adelaide Hills, saying to South Australians, hey, this has happened, it was devastating, but we need to support them. And we rolled that out again with the River Revival program, which included quite a significant marketing component. So these are the different things that we've done. Obviously, we've got a summer ahead. We have dry conditions at the moment. We are hoping that we won't need to do one of those marketing programs. But if you saw the budget, you would have seen that there's substantial extra focus on marketing for our place-based marketing campaign, so onwards and upwards.
To identify whether any influencers or brand advocates were sponsored through this budget line in the last year. So, how much and how many?
As we've spoken about before, we've had a substantial reduction in the use of brand advocates and a review in how people are used. Media for Meals, as we've spoken about before, is a way that has been used for as long as I can remember from a tourism point of view, and of course from a very competitive landscape we use that quite a bit. Examples of those media for meal activities includes those traditional media outlets and publications, including people were engaged like Tiffany Cromwell and Valtteri Bottas, who generated many impressions on their social media posts. As I said before, and I think you and I have had a conversation on this many times, when we use someone in this capacity, it has to be relevant. It has to build on who we are and the connection that we are doing. We want people selected on their relevance and audience reach and engagement and diversity, and we want them to align with what we're doing. So the whole point around Travel Our Way was asking people to travel our way and engage in that way. So we have taken time to reflect, review, and I'm satisfied at what we have now fits what we want to sell, our travel narrative, and where we want to go. And so when we talk about that, Sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's in-kind agreements. There was something just recent about using a very successful person, an Olympian, who was going out talking about the Limestone Coast. So these are things that a review has happened and we'll continue to use in the best way possible.
The time to examine this part of the Auditor General's report has expired.